Welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, the journey of becoming a conscious man, hosted by Milvo. Hey all, Milvo here, and welcome to episode 41 of the Unearthed Man podcast. To kick off, I'd like to acknowledge the traditional custodians of the lands on which we work and gather, and their continuing connection to land and waters. I pay respect to elders past, present, and emerging. I pay tribute to the diversity of First Nations peoples of Australia and their ongoing culture. If this is your first time listening to the podcast, then welcome aboard. If you're one of my regular listeners, then welcome back. I really appreciate your ongoing support. So if you are looking to know more about the Unearthed Man, then you can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn. It was a great chat with Brad last week, and he's so much to offer his clients and also the future generations. It's heartwarming to know that there are men actively doing the work, which breaks the cycle and creates a new cycle for the future men and women. I'm looking forward to following Brad's journey as we go along. I first came across today's guest via Instagram, where he was putting up very funny reels with a very serious undertone, which relates to the current situation in Australia and the dictatorial and racial approach that is taking place against the Australian Aboriginal community. I then watched the 1 hour video that he recorded on the eve of the first anniversary of his daughter's untimely and unnecessary death. Throughout the whole hour, I swapped between many emotions, the two main ones being sadness and anger. This story and the atrocities that are still taking place in Australia when it comes to the Aboriginal community needs to be voiced and spread. My intuition told me to reach out and invite him onto the podcast. My guest is a descendant of the Waanyi, Garawa, and Gangalidda tribes from the Aboriginal community of Dumaji in the Gulf of Carpentaria, Queensland. He was born and raised on the Waanyi Garawa Land Trust and with his extended family. He's an Aboriginal activist, respected leader, and advocate for Aboriginal rights. He's highly regarded amongst his people and peers as a tribal lawman and warrior for the knowledge keepers. He began his career in radio, later breaking to television presenting and acting, and more recently became a much sought-after motivational speaker, MC, and mentor. He was the director, concept creator, and associate producer of Zach Ceremony. This is the spiel for Zach Ceremony. It's an extraordinary feature-length documentary captured over 10 years that shows one boy's journey to manhood in a complex, emotionally driven story. Its themes are universal, that of family and connection, but also explores the fascinating and unique question of what it means to be a modern man belonging to the oldest living culture on Earth. I watched that it's about a 90-minute documentary, and it was amazing. The openness, the grief, the sadness, the again, the emotions that we're going through, but just the pleasure and the interaction between my guest and his son. Highly recommend everyone watch Zach Ceremony. So having said all that, when I reached out to my guest with the intuition, I was absolutely humbled that he agreed to come on the podcast. Now I'm expecting this to be a very deep episode. There's probably going to be some laughs along the way, but there's certainly going to be a bit of depth that we'll go to here. So I'd suggest if you listen to this, grab a beverage, find a relaxing location, and settle in for what will be a mind and heart-opening chat. So welcome to the Unearthed Man podcast, Alec, Willie, Stanley, Dumaji. Hey, Alec, how are you, brother?
Thank you for having me on, brother, and a big hello to all your listeners. And I too would like to acknowledge, our custodians out there around the country, the owners of the land for which we sit. And it's a pleasure to be here with you, and thank you for reaching out and giving me the opportunity to come in, sit and chat with you. I want to quickly acknowledge my mob up home, the Waanyi, Garawa, and Gangalidda people. I hail from the Mumbly and Willie clan groups of those tribes. I'm from the Dumaji skin grouping, my moiety group, which gives me great significance amongst my mob. And I wear the Birida marks, the mark of the Bari, the shooting star. And they're the marks that I wear in our tribal initiation ceremonies. And I'm very honored to represent all of my mob up home. And that's the connection I have to my people and my tribes. And, honored to be the son of Yalagunjimara, my mother, who's a powerful lawwoman with us as well. But thank you for having me on your show, brother. I'm really looking forward to this chat. And it's been a crazy week, but it's good to be home now and sitting here and having this discussion with you. So ready to roll.
Beautiful. Thanks for that, man. And thanks for acknowledging your people and where you come from. There's a couple of things already in there that I want to get to as we continue to explore. And I'm hoping for all our listeners that this is open-minded education about Aboriginals in Australia, the Aboriginal history. I mean, there's history now showing, which is down Warrnambool, which is West Victoria, that this culture has lived for excess of 100,000 years, yet to be fully proven. But within the Indigenous culture, they know that anyway. Within Australia, within the Aboriginal culture, so we want to explore through. Can I ask you to help clear up a few things for me as a clear white man, right?
Yeah.
We talked through three things. We talked through Indigenous, Aboriginal, and First Nations people.
Yeah.
Do you have a viewpoint on each of those? And just up front, what is the appropriateness of each and the preference of each, so that, again, people can just have an understanding? Because to be honest, I find it struggle to get a straight answer, and I find it confusing, and I don't want to be disrespectful, right? So you're trying your best to be disrespectful. So can you help me out, please?
Stephen, it's funny because you as a white man is asking me as an Aboriginal man the meaning behind three white words.
I think that sums it up, doesn't it? Just this there.
So, from my understanding, indigenous is something that is indigenous to this area or to that land. I think everybody's indigenous to a certain area. But again, if you look in the dictionary or whatever, I'm sure it's an English word, so it's something it doesn't rattle my cage too much. I've even heard Pauline Hanson call herself indigenous, so and she most likely is from wherever redhead people come from. Probably Scotland, I don't know. And First Nations is a term that's been taken on because of the arguments around, and this is again, I guess native people, the original inhabitants of this country, Australia or whatever, what the white man term for that. Again, let's get back to those two words you asked. They're all three white fellow words. They're from the white man's English. First Nation has been adopted because of, I guess, the real connection with the Americans, the American mob First Nation. But they use that term quite regularly. They also use Native Americans quite regularly. And Aboriginal, I believe, was a terminology or was brought in, for the Aboriginal mob here. But a lot of our mob are turning against that word because of the, the ab part of it, because it's abnormal or, being an Aboriginal is not what they're. Look, if you ask me what I call myself in our tongue, which is the Waanyi, Garawa, and Gangalidda. That's my tribes. Now, there's three tribes, and I'm connected to all of them. But within those tribes, we've got moiety groups, which connects you all. So Willie is one of the clans, which connects all the different tribes. And Mambalia, which is from my mother's side to the rainbow serpent blood, gives me that connection as well. So the Mambalia clan, Willie clan is Dingo, and the father side. There's an intricate sort of layer of identification amongst us. So the ID, I guess, or the title, that the three titles you've just thrown at me, are titles that, let's be real, our invaders, our oppressors, or our landlords, no, I wasn't the landlords, our overlords have come in and bestowed upon us to identify us, not just internationally, but amongst themselves as well, and be able to put in writing in their white man policy who they're referring to when they're making oppressive laws for us. Let's just make some more laws for these indigenous people or these Aboriginal people. So, answer to your question, I identify with my tribal tongue because that's the tongue of this land. That's the tongue that belongs here, the original tongue. So, I'm going to identify myself as that. And there's nothing wrong and nothing right about it. There's no arguments from me. There's a lot of people that get, I guess, upset by certain terminology. Trust me, I've been called worse. and some of those names, you have to even point out to people, because it's so normalized and so ingrained. I mean, the term abo is like calling an African American, or black American, the N word. That's right. That's the terminology behind it. You could go up and you call, and it rolls off the tongue down. I still got people say, "Oh, you're an abo, mate." And you look at them and you just feel like slapping them. But I've come to a higher point now where I'm beyond that. But the truth of the matter is, it's certainly a derogatory term for Aboriginal people. Same with the term coon, same with the term bung. These are all very derogatory, racist terms for Aboriginal people. And it's so sad to see that a lot of people are still stuck in that time space, because we're beyond that. We've evolved, and you need to be a little bit more mature about when you're dealing with this. But yeah, look, the right term for me would be in my own tongue, and that means that I own my narrative, I own my story. You're not telling me who I am and what I am.
Thank you. That's beautiful. And as you're just talking through that, the interesting thing that came up into my mind, which again, like I'm on a big educational path here too, which is part of having you on board, is if I say multiple white people, and I'm looking at their name, I'm going to say, have you originated from Ireland, Scotland, America? Like I'm going to pick a place. So it's actually completely disrespectful that if I actually don't see someone who originated from this country, and it's not us white people, right? To not actually walk up and say, what nation are you from, or where are you from? What's your tongue? Which tribe were you from here in this land? The Great Southern Land, or whatever we want to call it. Because that's no different. Like if someone's in Europe, because when you look at Australia and Europe, effectively that's what Australia was pre-1788. It was a connected country.
Yep.
But basically everybody had, and again, if my language is wrong, everyone was a caretaker for the component of the land of where they lived and they operated. And they made sure that anything that they did on their land did not impact upstream, downstream, left, north, south, east, west. They basically, everything, if they looked after their piece of land and honoured it, then, and everyone else did the same, you have this beautifully connected country where you got no issues, no boundaries, no fences. And it should be, so if you do see and in this day and age, it's even hard because you can't assume if someone's like not dark skinned or and I think you've referred yourself at some point, Alec, as being a yellow fella.
A yellow fella, yes. Yes.
Yeah, yellow fella, which we can touch on soon. But yeah, just that, just have a respect and actually ask someone, okay, so where you're from? Like, what's your background? What's your tribe? I guess a
lot of the Aboriginal mob is that, and even amongst Aboriginal mob, like, amongst the first thing we say to each other is, hey, who your mob? Where you from? Like, we're straight up about it. So, and if the person is a white person, they'll come back and say, thanks, brother. But yeah, I'm white, I'm not from mob. But that's a real good way to kind of get it out, is just ask who your mob is. When you use the term mob, which is a common phrase used amongst Aboriginal fellas and women for that matter, all our mob, it's kind of known straight away. It's a term that's used predominantly amongst First Nations mob. So we'll say who your mob, where you're from, kind of thing, and we're straight out like that because we want to know, we want to identify you, because straight away we can join dots and connections. And just back to what you was referring to a minute ago about each different nations governing their own areas, it's actually quite powerful and empowering to know that, when you look at the old ways of, and it's actually still in play. It's still in play right now. It's coming back slowly. If you look at Australia at the moment, let's just put it in this term, right? You've got the federal government, you've got the Queensland government, you've got your state government. Each one of those, you've got your Victorian government, your South Australia. So you've got the feds and you've got the states. So let's just look at the states. So basically, all the different Aboriginal groups or the tribes were states, the different states, right? And they had policies, right? And those policies were ratified and made legislation through song and dance and through ceremonies. So these ceremonies are called songlines, and they connected each tribal group around the entire continent. And every song and every part of it had secrets in it, had secret water holes, had secret cave paint. It told you the secrets of the land and where you could do this, where you could do that, where you could travel, you could hunt, you could fish. But it also put in those song lines the laws of the land and how to govern them and what to do. If you're in a certain country, you might want to burn a little fire behind your back so the spirits know you're a friend and not a foe. So within our song lines, within our initiation rites and ceremonies, you're taught all of this. These are the places that you learn your policies and procedures that governs your state. Now, there were over 300 states back in the day. When I guess colonization happened and invasion happened, They came in and dismantled and destroyed that by bringing in oppressive racist policies, and they attacked the ceremonies and the culture first. And I speak about it in my film that you mentioned earlier, Zach Ceremony, how they disempowered us by taking away our very, platform and our very blueprint, our constitution, which is our ceremonies. That's what our ceremonies are. That's what our initiation ceremonies are. You're taking a young. It's like taking a high school student and put them into university and let them graduate. So when we go through our ceremonies, we're graduating and we're getting told the laws of the land and how we are supposed to operate and how we should govern that land. So each tribal group had their own laws to govern, and each tribal group had that information to pass on to the next one. And at the crossroads, at the border of every single different tribal groups, is where the song was picked up by that group and taken to the next country. And we shared responsibility for that. We all honored and respected that. And that was a known practice and policy for a long, long time. Some of the bigger tribes would sometimes invade the smaller tribes, but it always ended in big robberies and singing, feasting, and then an understanding and a representation of what we're going to move forward with. So, people say we were never warring people. We did have war. We did have warriors. Our people knew how to fight and protected this land. I mean, you got to know how to fight if you're protecting a continent for over 80,000 years and survive. Right. I mean, if anyone thinks that Aboriginal people weren't warriors, maybe they should have been living in the period when Pemulwuy fought the British in Sydney for about 11 years and held them off and sent full governors on. You see a real warrior. I mean, he's such a warrior that cut his head off and took it back to England. They're still got his head in the jar in England, actually. So, we fought and defended when we had to. But most of the time, a lot of our interactions with our neighbors were that of, I guess, respect and honor. And we found a way to find allies in each other. And some of them were those Moichi groups I talked about earlier, your skin name and your clan groups. Those Moichi groups gave you an opportunity to marry into your neighbor's tribe. So if you're with this, that's where we talk about straight skin and wrong skin. Mm-hmm. That actually, so you'd be able to strengthen your tribe. And I'm not talking strength in military might or having more warriors to fight and destroy the next thing. It's more the might to survive, to have more warriors to hunt, to feast, to gather. There might be some tribes that had less men or less women. So it was a way of strengthening your tribe to be able to survive and follow the seasons and hunt and fish and gather. And we also, there's a myth that we're nomads. We weren't nomads. We had a certain path we lived. We had dwellings. It was just propaganda lies to just to basically try and disconnect us from our country to make it all right for the invaders to claim a continent without actually having treaties with us. That's the simple truth of it.
Yeah, absolutely great. So there's I've spoken to this on a previous podcast, but again, I just want to remind people, for those white mob who want to do some basic reading and some education to come through. One, read the Dark Emu, because that's a really written well for white people to have an understanding. The other one is there's the first knowledge book of series that are coming out, and one's about songlines and one's about design. And they talk exactly into everything that Alex just spoke about, which is, this debunking the myth that you just had these roaming, roaming mobs just going all over Australia, wherever they wanted to go. Like that some were farmers and some were fishermen and some did a combination of both, and depends where they're Alec. So Dumaji is up on the south part of the Gulf of Carpentaria. So basically, and I'll talk into what your people would have done, but I'm assuming there was definitely fishing and hunting and aspects that took place up there. So, and from my understanding, again, Alec, is that, and so I want to go back to this history, which is good because I really want to set the scene as to what's happening today, right? So part of that was depending also the mobs and whether they actually had some farmland or whether they had hunting or whatever else. Part of that coming together of two different tribes or different crobberies was also to be able to actually say, I've got an abundance of crops, I've got an abundance of kangaroo, I've got an abundance of this, and actually have a sharing place where trade would take place. And so people could actually also trade, because that's also what's been seen in history about the detailed level of trading that used to actually take place, because people are finding, I suppose, artifacts that originate, again, up in North Queensland, but they find them further down south through New South Wales or different things. So the only way that could have taken place, again, was through a very active trading system that happened again between all the different mobs.
Well, exactly. There was trading going on in this country for thousands of years between our mob. So we've been doing it for a long time. It's nothing new to us. And then there was international trade going on. There was, Indonesians coming across. We had Vanuatu mob coming across. You had all these different groups that were coming across doing trading. We'd trade with our medicine. I mean, sandalwood's one of our main medicine. We'd trade with a lot of the mob. I think these fellas called the Macassans. They came across as well. Up in almost 100, 200 years way before anyone else came here. So the knowledge, I guess, and around trading has been something passed down for generations among the Aboriginal mob, and all the different dances and songs and I guess rituals that went with the intricate rituals that went into these trade routes were also part of our history telling and our narrative. We didn't use books and pens and papers. That wasn't our thing. Song and dance and customary law and oral history was part of what we do. We did paintings as well up on cave walls. There was a known cycle of the season. We'd follow the 4 seasons. So we'd have a different sort of area to hunt and fish during those seasons and where we'd travel to. But each area all had occupations over long periods of time. I mean, the Lawn Hill National Park or the Bujimal National Park, where the Waanyi people are from, they inhabited that area it's been carbon dated 30,000 years in that one area. And just because they're not big, pyramids or huge, skyscraper structures there, does not mean that they were, of a lesser intelligence than these other sort of, mobs from around the world. It just means that it wasn't necessary. It just wasn't necessary to build skyscrapers. It wasn't necessary to build a pyramid out there. We had everything we needed from the land on the land. So we honored it, we looked after it, we cared for it the way it was. There were structures built from certain things, but most of the time, the caves were enough. The caves were, warm in winter and cool in summer. I mean, they were air conditioned in summer. And in winter, all you do is light a fire in there and it warms up and the rocks are all hot. And you didn't need it. It was like your own air conditioning unit. I mean, so it makes sense that in a country that's 99, 95% of the time, this country's, hot, dry, kind of arid, desert-like. Yeah. It makes sense not to be stressing your body out and running around carrying big boulders for some overlord to build a pyramid in honor of him. I mean, what kid would be crazy not to do that? Especially in that heat.
That's right. Either that or the aliens didn't actually come and visit this part of the world, whichever theory you want to run with. But we won't go into that one on this episode. But the thing on the song line, which I saw once, and I do like again, to dumb it down, which I really don't want to do because the mob culture is so intricate and complex. But that the mobs that lived along where the Great Barrier Reef is, actually one of their song lines talks about the fact of how they actually watched the ocean actually come all the way in. Like the land used to go out where the Great Barrier Reef was. That was where the land ended before it got the sea. And then over 10,000 years, the land or the sea actually retracted down to the point where the land ends now. And so they talk to that within a song line. They actually talked about the fact of watching over all that period of time. Again, the fact that they have a song line and a story and a dance that depicts how far out land used to be and now how far inland it actually is. And that's, again, been dated to happen. That happened 10,000 years ago. Again, is just testament to the fact of how strong the song lines are, how much they've been handed down. Someone on average lives 50, 60 years, 60, 80 years and handing down. That's a lot of handing down of a traditional song for something to take place over 10,000 years.
It is. And to think about the important sort of duties that certain members of tribes had to keep that story ongoing and to keep the truth about it ongoing. And a lot of I'll tell you, a lot of the song lines and a lot of the truths that are in them still hold up today. Like you can go to certain parts of the country and you'll find a waterhole here. You can go and you can find, petrified wood here, or ancient sort of fossils of barramundi dreamings or whatever, and they're all actually still hold up. So it's basically, I guess, an encyclopedia or a history look at this country and over thousands of years, and that's very impressive. We outdate the Incas and the Egyptians for that matter by thousands of years. It's not like only by 100. We're talking thousands and thousands, and that's been proven by science. So we certainly have an intimate knowledge and an intimate relationship with this country, and it's a powerful thing, and it's a tool worth acknowledging and utilizing, especially in this day and age when there's so much, natural sort of disasters happening with bushfires and the climate at the moment. Climate change is a big problem. Aboriginal knowledge can be utilized to actually, I guess, help humanity in a really powerful way, if that's what I guess the powers that be chooses to do.
And I think that's a really good point that I want to start to get into. But at half a step back, I'm interested now with you, Alec. Is so your Instagram handle is Jarrbikgala, which
Jarrbikgala, yeah.
Jarrbikgala. So again, I'm white, right? So I'm never going to say it correctly, right? Over time, I would learn, right? But which means wedge-tailed eagle, and so
yes.
That I'm not sure if that's been bestowed on you, but that's where you've got that.
Yes.
But also know in Zach's ceremony, you talked to, I think it was the black cockatoo.
Yes.
Or your spirit bird is the black cockatoo from where you're from.
Yep.
Again, just so I'm aware, how do they play in with each other, and that spirit bird, or how that spirit animal comes into play with yourself?
Well, it's like a sign. So it's like a sign for. So when your mother, even if your parents even actually, I guess, conceive you, there can even be a thought or a dream about you coming. And Aboriginal people are very spiritual, very spiritually powerful people. Probably one of the most in tune sort of race of people in the world with our spirituality. And I need to say this because it connects to those songlines as well. Not only are songlines and our dance and ceremonies a roadmap or an information highway, it also delves and touches into the spirit world. And we believe a lot of our songs can transcend you into the spirit world, whether it's even having discussions with aliens or discussions with other tribal groups around the world, portholes that takes us into the realm of, the afterlife, or even over into, mental telepathy, I think that's the word.
Yep.
So we have a really, in tune knowledge of intuition and using our physical being to go into the next realm of spirituality. And that's one of the really powerful things about Aboriginal. So, you want to talk about my name, Jarrbikgala, we'll get to that one in a minute. But when we go to our totems or our dreaming, we call them, it's either something your parents dreams about or they come in touch with before you're conceived or even after you're conceived. And it then becomes attached to you spiritually. So with my case, with the black cockatoo, it came to my mother at a time when she needed a message. And my mother was a young Aboriginal woman that was a slave from the mission of Dumaji. Because the mission of Dumaji, my home, was ruled with a brutal sort of force by the fundamentalist Brethren Church. And, the mission men there used to send young women out, young men as slave labor to the nearby pastoral companies. So my mother became a slave girl from Dumaji when she was only 17 or 18 years old. So even younger. I think she started when she was only 12, 13 years old when they had her in the dormitory. What they did was they put them into dormitories, or as in the case of in America and Canada, they call them residential schools. Down here, they call them dormitories or missions, basically taking children off their parents and putting them in this white man's sort of institute to civilize them and educate them. While they're there, they basically became slave labor. They washed, they cleaned, they cooked. If they didn't, they got flogged, they got punished, they got their hairs cut, they got locked up, they got chains put on their legs, made to stay in a corner in a sack bag or a potato sack to dehumanize them or to, basically to break them down. So my mother was one of these young women that became that, and she got sent away to the nearby pastoral companies up in the lower Gulf region. There's some very big pastoral companies up there that made millions and millions of dollars off the back of Aboriginal slavery. My mummy was one of those slaves. And I'm a product of slavery because a white man impregnated my mother while she was out on these slave camps, on droving camps, working in mustering camps. There was this practice in Australia, if you don't know it, I'm about to tell you now, called the drover's son. Now, I'm not saying that my mother was a drover's son, but this is a known practice amongst Aboriginal mob and all those drovers out there, white pastoralists and white man cattle barons. They know of this practice and they choose not to speak of it. It was called the drover's son. What would happen is white men that was out on droving parts and camps, they go to Aboriginal camps and they'd get young girls as young as 10, 11 and 12, because they would have been still, untouched sexually. And they'd take them and they'd cut their hairs and they'd dress them up as boys. And they'd work them during the day as boys, as men, slave them. And at night, they'd sexually abuse them. They became their sexual companions on those long 3-4 months droving camps. And they'd end up dropping them at the next camp once they're through them, or hand them over to their other men in their party. Now, this practice is a known practice that created a lot of yellow fellas across this country, including yours truly. Now, I'm not saying that and my mother still to have this conversation with me. So I'm out speaking about it now, and we've spoken a little bit here and there about it, and I can feel there's a lot of pain and trauma there. So I'm being very gentle with my mum. And you got to realize I'm 45 years old. And it's taken me a long time to be able to sit down with mum and even give her the platform to speak her truth. And I'm slowly giving her that with my podcast. That's what my podcast is about. Phoenix Rising, the Alec Dumaji Chronicles. I'm speaking my truth, and I'm talking about my lived experience and my lived reality. I'm not going to go out there and try and tell someone else's story. So we're talking here about, I guess, the connection to the spirit animal and our spirit bird and our totem. So when my mother was away from her country, away from her parents in the sanctuary, the safety of her tribe, the black cockatoo spirit came to her, and she saw them birds, and they yelled and squawked before I was even conceived. And she told me that it was the most calming and beautiful thing that ever came to a young woman of her age. And it gave her peace to know that something special was coming to her. And our law and custom as well, it's funny because the black cockatoo is the bringer of the rain. It's the rain bird. And right now, it just started raining here at my home. It's literally raining outside. So I'm just talking about something that's very important to me. I've got black cockatoo feathers hanging up everywhere here. Check this one out. Yes. I normally wear this it's a headdress I made for when I do Cobra dances.
Yeah.
The black cockatoo feathers. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that spirit bird came to my mother, it gave her peace away from her mob and the sanctuary and the safety of her family. And her father was a big warrior man. Having a fair-skinned child back in the 70s was taboo and shame job for your mob. So when she went home and they realized that she was impregnated by a white man while she was out on a cattle camp, it became shame for my family and for my mother to walk around town and, finally give birth to me when she did. But she always knew that this spirit animal came to her, and she bestowed upon me, the lidagi. That's the proper name for the black cockatoo, the spirit bird. You get two marine meanings, like I said. He brings rain, but he's also the messenger bird. He brings the messages of hope, the message of wisdom and knowledge. And mum felt that it was important that she, gave birth to me and gave me a life. It was very, I guess, powerful that her father, my grandfather, was a really strong, powerful lawman and, found, a really strong lawman in town. He was a Waanyi Garawa lawman, and his name was Dumaji, Don George, who stepped up and took my mother under his wing. And his first wife had already died, and he had 4 kids to raise to his first wife. And you spoke about my documentary earlier. I speak a little bit. I've actually made the documentary film not just about my son Zach, but in honor of my father Dunga, this old lawman. So he took mum on as his wife, and he took on the burden of this yellow fella kid that was about to be born, and brought him into a world, and gave me the sanctuary and the safety of him as my father. And if you speak about my names, my white man names was given to me, again, strategically to protect me, not just from the white law, but also through blackfellow law and Aboriginal law. My actual real names in the white man world is William Stanley Dumaji. Now, William is my mother's Waanyi, her big uncle, this top lawman whose real name was Murrundu. So Murrundu Dumaja. Murrundu was a proper big lawman. He was the Rainbow Serpent singer. He sang the songs of the Rainbow Tongue. In fact, he was such a powerful leader that his name, Murrundu, is mentioned in our ceremonial initiation songs and song lines that govern our country. So to have his name, his white man name, William, given to me was a way of protecting me as well. And then my mother's father was Stanley Dumaji, and Stanley, Bingadaweed was his proper name. He was a very staunch warrior. Now, he and Willie were like chalk and cheese. Willie was a diplomat, a songman, a negotiator. Stanley was a punch you in the face warrior. We're going to fight. It's happening. This shit's going down. You understand? They were kind of like I guess, like Bennelong and Pamela. If you don't know who Bennelong or Pamela is, do a bit of history, do a bit of research, probably pick up a book by Bruce Elder from the Sydney Morning Herald. He was a journalist with them called Blood on the Wattle. I advise a lot of, non-Indigenous people, white fellas or fellas of different country when they come to Australia to read Blood on the Wattle, because it's history. It's actual written history put into sort of, I guess, chronologically over the date of invasion. But they talk about Pamela and Bennelong on there, and I'll actually urge Aboriginal mob out there as well, because there's this misinterpretation or guided thought that most Aboriginal fellows know this stuff as well, but most of them don't, because they've been miseducated too by the system. So I'll urge anybody out there that want a bit of knowledge around, what happened from the date of invasion, pick up Blood on the Wattle, because one thing the white fella did do, he wrote a lot of stuff down. He cut his own throat. He's telling all the truths that are going to come out later, silly bastard. But back to my grandfather's, Willie and Stanley. So my real white man name is William Stanley Dumaji, and everyone asks, well, where did the name Alec come from? And I always tell them it's because in the late 80s, Alec Baldwin was a big star, and everyone thought I looked as good as Alec Baldwin. Nothing, it's just a bit of comedy, bit of fun. The truth of the matter is, there was an uncle called Alec Hogan. Alec Hogan was married to my mother's little sister, Mum Eunice. And when old man Murrundu Willie Dumaji died, we couldn't speak his name no more. And in our culture and our law, when someone of that great importance dies, you have to change their name. And it's disrespectful to speak their name while they cross over into the dreaming and get up there with the spirit people, because you speak their name too much, they'll come back and not haunt you, but they'll give you a rough time and be cheeky and tease you quite a bit. And because Murrundu Willie his nature was like that anyway, Mum and everybody said, we can't speak Granddad's name no more. And it just so happened Uncle Alec was there that said, Alec's a good name. Let's call you Alec from now on. And that's where Alec Dumaji came from. And it's stuck with me ever since. A lot of people, think there's two people. They think there's a William Dumaji and they think there's an Alec Dumaji. But we're actually the same person. But I guess just your original question was about the totem, and I guess that's the story behind my name, where it came from, and the totem to me, the black cockatoo, is really important. That, and some of us have more than one totem. It's not necessarily you have one totem. Mum could have walked past a brown snake and a kangaroo at the same day, and it probably my totem could have been my totems as well. And sometimes we do that. We do have more than one totems, because the signs tell us. And I guess, and again, it's not just the physical form of it, it's the spirituality and the connection of the spirituality of it. So then they become songlines and they become stories that actually grow into something bigger. And it manifests itself into something that is in form of what I am. And that's now become a part of my personality, become of my DNA, become a part of who I really am. So that's the black cockatoo, the Lidagi. If you want to keep talking about names, I can go into the Jarrbikgala name if you want. because it's an interesting sort of, I guess, chat to go on with. But as I mentioned, my grandfather, Murrundu Willie Dumaji, his nephew, who's sort of my blood uncle, is a man called Murrundu Yana, who's a staunch warrior for our people up in from the Gangalidda tribe up in the Lower Gulf region. And he's been watching me for years, and he knows that I always wanted to have one of my tribal names. And you'll notice on the film Zach Ceremony, I say my name as Gugarandu. Now, the reason for that is because back then, again, Alec Hogan, who gave me the name Alec, decided he was going to give me a language name. And when I was a young fella, I was a pretty boy, and I was a sports star, and I played rugby, a bit of boxing, and all the girls liked me, and I was cute and all. So he had an old uncle called Gugarandu, who was a bit of a Romeo. He had more than one wives. So he teased me one day and said, "Oh, now I'm going to call you Gugarandu because you're a bit of a Romeo. You get too much girlfriends." And it was a nice name to have, but it wasn't one that was really mine. That came from it was passed down from somebody else, and I didn't feel like it was ever really my name. So eventually, years later, so Dad Alec, died back in 2002, I think it was. And I didn't feel right having that name. It was a bit of a fun thing with him, and I loved that. But the fact that it was, I kept going. I feel like my name will come to me at a certain point. In 2018, I led a protest on Waanyi land, for the Waanyi people. And Murrundu Yana saw me, and he saw me sitting on this hill, perked up on this hill with the black cockatoo feather around my head. And he's seen all the dreams I was having. And he had a dream. He said, "You need to come see me. We have to go to the ceremonies ground. Come over here." And this is actually the first time I'm telling this story, to be honest with you. And it was such an honor because, I hold Murrundu in very high regards. And he's a man of high pedigree and law, customary tribal law amongst our people. He's a big lawman for the Gangalidda mob and holds a lot of weight. So he called me over, and I went over and spent the night and had dinner. He said, "You're going to need to come out to the lawn, to the men's ceremony ground. I've got something very important to tell you. Your name came to me. Your name came to me in a dream." So we went out and stood there, and he, we did a ceremony around it. I'm not going to get too much into how it happened, but we did a ceremony, and basically he said, "From this day forward, all the old names you had, you leave them behind. You'll still be known as them for some reason or another. Like, you leave them behind now. That's not you no more. Your name is Jarrbikgala." Now, the proper way to pronounce it is Jarrbikgala. Jarrbikgala. You've got to roll your tongue with the R, but Jarrbikgala seems a little bit more easier for white fellas to sort of get their head around. So, and Jarrbikgala means the wedge-tailed eagle. And he told me that when he saw me perched up on that hill with the feathers around my head, it reminded him of the wedge-tailed eagle and the importance that the wedge-tailed eagle plays amongst Aboriginal people up in the Lower Gulf region, which is they're the visionaries and they're the guardians of our mob. And they see the future more than our other I guess, spirit animals, because they're the only bird that can fly above the storms. The storms I'm hearing right now, the rain and the cyclones, they fly above it, and they keep an eye out spiritually for our people. And he felt that I was doing the same with some of the actions I was taking up home. And still to this day, I mean, I was with him last week in Burketown. We just got a new native title claim for the Waanyi people. And he looked at me and he goes, "That's why your name's Jarrbikgala, because you're able to see the visions for our mob in this region. And, you're obviously doing things to protect us and to sustain us in the future." So that's where my names have come from, and they're all very important to me for some shape, form or another. But I'm very honored that I carried such important names. The earlier ones I had was for survival and to keep me alive. And Mum was very smart about how she did that. The other ones were a bit of a comedy, a bit of a funny thing, and out of respect for the old fellow, old granddad. And then the last one was bestowed upon me for something I earned. I earned that name, Jarrbikgala. I fought, and it wasn't something I went out and said, "I'm doing this to get this name." It just happened because I was walking my path in an honourable, respectful manner as a warrior. And I wear all of them, all of those titles with a lot of pride. They're a badge of honour to me.
Thanks for sharing all that. And thank you. If this is the first time you talked about, I can't roll my R's. I've got this stupid little flat tongue, and it's never going to happen. So, but yeah, for starting, Jarrbikgala. Thanks for that. I really appreciate that. The one thing in the very short time that I've sort of got to know you, and be it through social media and everything else, or just through Zach's ceremony, you are a complete embodiment of every one of those names that has been bestowed on you.
Thank
And
you.
it's easy. It's easy to see from a distance. Um, you know, we often think about our grandparents and for Aboriginals, that the people are going off the dream time and so forth, that they were looking down on us, and are they proud of us and so forth. And I would say that every one of them would be, one, proud of you, two, probably channeling themselves still back through you, giving everything that I've seen. So I wear everything with pride. It's just fantastic. So thanks for sharing that. That's just
No, thanks, brother. Appreciate it.
Back on a few things. So I absolutely am a big believer of pre-life, this current skin form that we're in. We're here for a reason. Where we go on to afterlife. Spirit, energy, connection. So I am a full believer of I'm here for a purpose. I'm still uncovering what that purpose is. Maybe this podcast, because it feels so true, and then I get to connect to people like yourself and put a message out. So all I'm doing now is that, I'm got 10 years on you. I spent probably 52 years just, a bit in cynical world and a bit everything else. But now I'm like, I am completely fully open to a lot of things that could be taking place that's around us. And so I'm enjoying this because, that I completely get it. I'm learning more about it, but I completely understand it, and I can completely understand, some of the conversation you're having about that connection and that the pre-dreaming and that the messages coming in and saying this is what we need to do. I feel it's in all of us.
Yeah.
But in our Western world, over our hundreds of years and even thousands of years, it's just been beaten out of us. Like, for some reason, there's some regime has slowly beaten out the ability to have connection. And I think if we can reopen up that energy channel and reopen up that, and so in the area I deal with now, there are a number of people who, are becoming more connected, more open, more intuitive, more taking things on, which again, and I'll use the word Aboriginal. For the Aboriginal, must be looking, going, you people are fucking stupid. Like, fuck. What, you think this is a new phenomenon? Like, like, they're gonna be sitting there just shaking their head going, what the fuck are you people like thinking? Like, come on, seriously. So, so there's embarrassment that comes with that, but again, it's we can only open up and learn and start to re-educate, I suppose.
Well, it's a belief, right? It's a you live it, you breathe it, you practice it, and you believe it, and it becomes reality. You're just saying about Aboriginal fellows waiting. We're the kings, we're the masters of the waiting game. We're very patient, very patient people, and there's an art to it. There's an art that Aboriginal people practice, and it's got different names around the country from different tribal groups. But there's an old auntie called Judy Atkinson, who's from down near Lismore Way in northern New South Wales. And she teaches it. They call it the art of Didiri, the art of learning how to wait for the perfect time, the perfect storm to awaken people. And you and I, brother, are currently sitting in a perfect storm. That's an international storm around the globe that's awakening people. And I see it as a great opportunity to, refresh, rebirth, and retrain ourselves in what you just said. Your mob lost. It's not hard for your mob. You just got to find that connection again. Our mob, Aboriginal mob, we stamp the ground, we sing our songs, we awaken the spirits. We'll use the body as a temple. We'll do things to our body with sleep deprivation, with pain, with hunger, with starvation, to go onto a different realm and platform, to be able to speak to our ancestors, to talk to the spirits, and we'll do that without any substance abuse in our bodies. And that's why it's sad to see a lot of my mob and a lot of our people lost in substance abuse. It's the oppressors and our invaders using that to disconnect us. You understand? And when they disconnect you, they plug you into their matrix and their narrative and their story, and they change who you are, and they turn you against your own mob. But when you come back into this world where we really are the masters back here in the spirit world, we can do things that I've seen, I guess, that people would think are impossible. I live and breathe my culture so much in a sense that psychologically, I don't believe there's anything I can't do. And people say to me, how come you're so confident? And this is why. I'm confident because I psychologically believe I can achieve whatever I set out to do. I didn't go to film school to learn how to make a movie. I just made that film because I believed I could do it. And I believed that for the right purpose. And I surrounded myself with people that could bring the tools necessary to be able to get to the end product. I traveled the world because I believed I could do it. And I psychologically told myself I'm important and I can do this. So physically, my physical form is only a manifestation of my psychological sort of strength. And when they break you down, they chuck spirits at you, alcohol, drugs, whatever, that depowers you, that de-warriors you and takes you to somewhere where you're not connected no more. And that's what's been the tactic of our oppressors the world over. And that's happened here very strategically, very powerfully in Australia. And, one of the best things Australia is good at, they're the best at denial and lies and propaganda. So that's why I question them. And when even when I got my own mob attacking me and saying things to me, I don't attack them back because some of them don't know what they say, or don't live in the world I live in, or haven't seen the power of cultural spirituality and ceremony. Like, I've done things where it's on a different realm and on a different platform that I know I'm safe, and I know I'm okay because of my belief. I'll give you one example. When I went on my walkabout in 2013, I think it was, or 12 or 13, and it's in the film Zach Ceremony. I went to America. I've never been to America in my life, but physically, spiritually, psychologically, I had a real strong connection with the native mob over there. And I was seeing them come to me in ceremonies and in dreamscapes and dream spaces and in this psychological sort of spiritual world when I was going to ceremonies. So when I was practicing my ceremonies here and doing our powerful song lines and dances, I could feel them and I could see them, and I could see them dancing power hours to me. I could see them messaging me. So I started having conversations with my elders and my law keepers, our men of high degree amongst our mob. And I said, look, these messages are coming to me to do the walkabout and go and sit with these Native Americans. And our lawmen said to me, and there's a few of them, they said, it's actually them calling you. We've been speaking them to the spirit world for a long time. They do ceremonies like us too, but you need to go and see them and sit with them. Now, anyone will tell you, America is a pretty, I guess, violent country. They carry guns. There's a lot of, I guess, reasons to be scared to travel a country like America. And someone like myself, pretty naive and pretty, at that time, wasn't very worldly. It would be, I guess, a scary thing for anybody to do. But in my head, I was like, this is what I'm going to do. I got to do this. So I flew into America and I did this big walkabout around. I'll get into the story another time, but I flew into Nashville and I took a Greyhound bus from Nashville to Hopi land. Because when I got to Nashville, my Native American brother that I was coming to see, who I'd never met before, never met him, but we psychologically connected and we started talking on Facebook and through friends of friends of friends, we started kind of connected. He said, I was going to go to Nashville and meet with him. And I got there and he wasn't there. He was out in the powwow trail doing ceremonies and stuff. He said, look, brother, you must go and connect with the Hopis first, because from what I understand, they're the oldest native tribes over here. So go and see the Hopis. They have prophecies that you talk about. And I didn't. This is my first conversation on the phone with him. Everything else is just via text, on Facebook. But in my intuition and my spirituality, my belief told me that this was the right thing to do. So I said, okay, I'm going to see the country. I'm going to jump on a Greyhound bus. Now, I don't know if anyone knows this, but Nashville to Arizona is almost a week's drive. Yeah. I didn't know this. I just with my naive and untraveled, I just went and did it, and I'm glad I did it. And anyone will tell you as well, jumping on a Greyhound bus in America is pretty dangerous because you've got a lot of the low end people that can't afford to fly, jump on there. And, a lot of people, very desperate people that you're more likely to get robbed or you get bashed or, something going to happen to you. So I was, it wasn't the smartest thing to do, but I knew I had to do it. So I did it. I'm traveling. I'm 3 days in, and I get to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and I'm sitting in my seat, and this brother jumps on, and he walks past me, he looks at me, he comes back, and he goes, "Is that seat taken?" And I said, "No, you can sit." So he sits beside me, and I can tell he's a native brother. I can tell whether whether he's he's a native brother from over there. And for about 3 or 4 hours, we don't talk. We stop at a place called Laguna. He jumps out, and then he comes back on, and he sits beside me. We're still not talking. I'm looking at out the window. He looked like out of a John Wayne movie. It really sort of blew my mind how amazing that Arizona, New Mexico country is. I could see the Comanches, and I could see bloody Geronimo and the Apaches riding out there, the spirit world. Anyway, this brother beside me started talking to his mother. Now, I was on my way to the Hopi reservation to go and sit with the Kachina dancers, because the Kachinas are the spirit beings from the spirit realm, and the Kachinas were also part of building, the mesas and the pyramids. So these are spirit beings that I had to go and introduce myself to in America. And I'm sitting on this bus beside this random fella from Albuquerque, and he starts talking to his mother about 100 miles before we got to Winslow. And he goes, "Yeah, Mom, I'm coming home to help in the mesa. I'm coming home to help at the plaza. Yep, I'll be there for the Kachina dance. I'll see you soon, Mom." And I looked at him and I said, "Brother, are you native?" And he goes, "Yeah." And he looked at me, he's like, "Why?" And I said, "Oh, I'm native too. I'm Aboriginal." And I could see the look on his face, like, yeah, bullshit. You don't look Aboriginal to me, because I could pass for Maori, I could pass for a Mexican. I've had people tell me I'm Spanish. I've had people telling me I'm Native American. I've got this worldly look, which kind of has helped me over the years. And I said, "Here's a picture." I pulled my Facebook up and I pulled a photo out of Mom. I said, "That's my mother." And he went, "Oh my God." I said, "Yeah, so I'm Aboriginal. This is my mother." And he said, "What are you doing here?" I said, "Well, I'm actually coming here to come and visit the Hopi people, to come and sit with them and see the Kachina dancing, because I was told to come and show my respect to them." And he said, "If you're for real and if you're truthful, here's my number." And he wrote his number on a piece of paper, handed it to me. He got off and he said, "You call me, my parents and my mother and I are the ones cooking at the plaza tomorrow." And he got off at Winslow. I kept going to Flagstaff, spent the night there, got up the next morning, got a hire car and drove down to Comanche, which is the res out north of Winslow. And I get there, and there's hundreds of people in the plaza region, and they're all up on the top of the houses, and they're looking down into the plaza. So they're this rectangular thing where the Kachina dancing in full flight, in full regalia, dancing, and it's hot, and they're praying and singing and dancing for rain and for corn. And I'm there for about 5 minutes, and I feel this tap on my shoulder, and I look up, and it's this fella, Joseph Stacy. That's Joseph Stacy, Jojo Stacy. And he says to me, "Looked like he wasn't full of shit, brother. You're real full." He said, "You need to come with me. Here's a bottle of water for you. My parents are down here. My mothers were down here waiting for you with corn, with food for you. The Kachina wants to meet. The Kachinas want to meet you and bless you for coming." And I'm blown away. So I go down, I sit, the dance is going all day, and then eventually the Kachinas, a couple of they come over and they offer me their made, their handmade ceramic bowls, which I don't know if you've seen sort of Hopi art or Mayan, Incan sort of art. This is the Pablos. They're similar. They make these bowls, and they have this amazing sort of artwork that could be alien-like.
Yes. And
they hand it to me, which is full of corn, which is their what they're praying for, what they're singing for, and offer this corn to me, which was really important. And I knew then, I said, even before then I knew, but I could tell us I'm on the right path. This is the right thing to do. That night, while I sat there and feasted with them and chatted and talked, that night I had a dream that I had to meet a very important woman up amongst the Lakota people. And I had to leave there within a few days to be up on Lakota country. And it's weird because about 2 days later, I got a message from my, brother, Charles Robinson, his name. He's a Choctaw and Cherokee brother. And he says to me, "You must seek Andy Redbird when you're on Pine Ridge Rosebud Reservation. Andy Redbird is the man you need to seek." I'm going, okay. And that's all. It was just like, it's weird because it was like dotted messages. It wasn't a full on, it was just like kind of just dropped in clues for you. You must go and do this. And it was all very coming from a higher place. They're like, you must do, seek such and such. And I was like, man, is this guy playing games with me? What's going on here? And you have to be there on the 26th of June, I think it was 26th of June. You have to be on 26th of June. You must be there on that day. So I rushed out of Hopi Land, say goodbye to my new brother, Jojo. I get to Flagstaff. I jump on a plane from Flagstaff to Phoenix, and from Phoenix to Denver, and Denver out to Rapid City in South Dakota. And I walk out and I go to hire a car, and there's no cars left except for one. And the guy goes, there's one car left. You can have it if you want it. It's a Fiat. And I'm like, and I've never heard of a Fiat before. I don't know what the hell a Fiat is. So we walk out, and here's this Fiat, and it's about this big. It's as big as a shoebox. I don't know if you've seen this, like, if you've seen a small little Fiat. It's as big as a shoebox. I'm standing there going, what the hell? So I get in this little white Fiat, and I jump into it. I'm not a huge guy, but I'm a pretty big guy. And I'm sitting there going, I'm driving a Fiat. So I'm riding this little Fiat. I think it's a French car. I'm not sure, but this small little matchbox car for any of the kids, that might listen to the pod.
It's an Italian car to get up the small streets of Italy. Like when they had the really tiny streets of Italy, like they're like where the horse and cart used to go. They had to actually give a car that would fit through the same laneways through the small streets of Italy. So that's exactly what the little Fiat is. They are tiny as.
I was going to tell this story. I was going to tell this story later, but since we're deep into it, I may as well keep going. And this is one of my greatest adventures was this time. So I jump into this Fiat. I'm driving out of Rapid City. Now, Rapid City and that South Dakota is the home of the warrior tribe. The Lakota people, like proper warring warrior people that fought and defeated Custer. They defeated the 7th Cavalry. Defeated the American Army. And they still have that pride in holding that flag. The American Army has never taken that flag back from them. And they still walk around saying that. That's like, we defeated the Army. So I'm driving down out of Rapid City past the Black Hills. And I'm like a big blubbering baby. I'm going, oh my God, I'm not really doing this. And I'm having people tell me, Pine Ridge and Rosebud, the reservations, they're the most violent places outside of a war zone. Be very careful when you go in there because people disappear there. They disappear into the Badlands and never seen again. In fact, there's a lot of movies about it. There's a lot of people talk about this. But in my spiritual realm, in my culture, my law, I was being told this is the right thing to do. You're on your path. Believe this, follow it, dream it, make it reality. So I'm literally driving in my Fiat past the Black Hills, which is known as the heartbeat of the country of the old Turtle Island, and the heart of Lakota spiritual sort of dreaming and ceremonies and culture and creation comes from up there to them. And I'm crying, I'm blubbering. I drive onto the Pine Ridge Reservation and I come up to Ogallala city or the town of Ogallala. So, there's different groups. You got the Ogallala band, you got the Lakota Nation, right? The Lakota Nation. Then you got different bands. You've got the Hung Papa, you've got the Sijanku, you've got the Ogallala. So these are all clans, if you will, of the great Lakota Nation. The actual Sioux, the Sioux, the word Sioux is not really their language. It was actually the French, I believe, or the Spanish that used the word Sioux for them. They're actually the Lakota. They're not Sioux. Right. So that's one thing I learned as well. So I drive through Ogallala, this town of Ogallala, and I come out the other side, and there's this huge parade walking down the main, like on the road. So I had to pull over and stop. And there's all these, big Lakota warriors walking and on Harleys and, carrying, spears and like real warrior society and on cars. And I'm going, oh my God. I look at the date. I'm going, this is the day they defeated Custer. This is the 26th of June. They defeated Custer on this day. So they're celebrating the defeat of Custer, because the great warrior Crazy Horse was Ogallala and Sijanku. I think he's from those two bands. And I'm going, I gotta say so. I gotta join. I gotta be part of this. So I walk up to one of the young fellows and who's there with a camera filming everything. I said, "Excuse me, brother. Are you fellas marching and commemorating, the Battle of the Little Bighorn when you fellas defeated Custer, General Custer?" He looked at me and goes, "Huh?" He gave me this real stupid look like, what? No. I'm like, oh, really? So what are you doing? He goes, no. What we're here to today is we're here in remembrance. He goes, that's great that you know that history, but that's not why he said, I'm sure there's someone celebrating summer because of that. He said, but we're here today. We just came from the cemetery over here where some of our loved ones have, laid buried, our warriors. He said, we're going down here to the Sundance, to the Sundance grounds, because back in 1975, the FBI attacked us over here at the Sundance grounds, and our warriors, Leonard Peltier and Bob Robidoux, stood up and fought back against them. And Bob Robidoux to this day, Leonard Peltier to this day is still in a federal prison in Florida, in a maximum security prison as a political prisoner. He's like their version of Nelson Mandela.
Right.
And I was like, what? I said, I've never heard of this man before. And I said, oh, brother, he's one of our freedom fighters. He was part of the AIM movement, which was the American Indian movement, which obviously is the equivalent of the Black Panthers. For the Black American movement.
Yep.
And I was like, can I please march? Can I march in honor and stand with you? And he looked at me like, I guess so. Who are you? And I said, oh, I'm Aboriginal. I kind of stated who I was, and they all looked at me funny. And I ended up putting my I had ochre with me, so I put some red ochre on me, and I put my Aboriginal shirt flag on, and I jumped in and followed them down to the Sundance grounds. And I drove my Fiat. And I got to get back. The reason I'm telling you about the Fiat is because when I got to the Sundance grounds, the Warrior Society of the Lakota people, the Ogalala, the Warrior Society are a real like they're proper warrior. They're the protectors. They're the dog soldiers. And when you come into their world and onto their reservation, you better be prepared because they're going to check you out. And if you're full of shit, you're going to disappear. Or if you're there for the wrong reasons, you're going to get told to leave really quickly. So they come up and checking me out, and all the kids and the women straight away started laughing at me because of my Fiat. They thought it was such a funny joke, and all the warriors are coming up to me and started giggling. They go, "Hey man, you can't come on the res with that. You can't come onto the res in a Fiat. You can't do that." Because I'm parking up beside their big F trucks. Yeah. And they're looking at me going, oh, this weird dude coming over here driving around in a Fiat and they're on the res, man. You can't bring that car in here. And all the women are going, oh, look how cute his car is. It's like that movie Cars. And they're all making fun of me. So all of a sudden, I wasn't a threat, So I reckon the spirits and the ancestors put that Fiat there for me to travel in as my chariot to actually break down the barriers to make me look like I wasn't a threat. I was a clown. I was a joke. I was a jester. I was the opposite of anything they ever thought of, and I came in a loving, special, spiritual way. So I sat with them, and Leonard Peltier's wife, Auntie Dorothy, came up to me and she goes, "Your uncle Leonard Peltier wanted me to tell you that he had a dream about you, that you were coming, and he's going to say that in a minute on the phone." I'm like, "What?" So they ring Leonard Peltier in the federal prison. He's on the phone because they're doing this commemoration, and Leonard Peltier goes, "There's a young man amongst you there today. He's come from thousands of miles away across the ocean. He's our family. He come to me in his dream, in the spirit world, and you must take care of him and make him welcome on our lands. That's our family. He's here for an important reason." And I started crying, and I see all these big Lakota warriors. I see all these big Lakota warriors in their Warrior Society vests on their Harleys, all come up to me one by one and embrace me and hug me and cry and tell me, "You're our family. You will be protected on the res. You're here with us." And his wife came over to me, Auntie Dorothy, and she said, "You're a messenger. You're a messenger from your people to come here and connect us spiritually. And we've been talking and hearing from your people for a long time." And that then really blew my mind as to the reason I was there. And I said, "Well, a woman came to me in a dream, and I was told to find this man, Andy Redbird." And they all looked at each other and said, "Yeah, you got to go to Rosebud. You must go to Rosebud. The people you seek are at Rosebud." I'm like, and that was it. They didn't give me any more. They didn't give me more than I needed, or any less that I didn't need. They fed me. They gave me a drink. They put me in my Fiat and sent me on my way. They said, we know who you are here now. You roam around this res untouched." So then the word went out. There was this crazy Aboriginal guy in a white Fiat driving across the res. I drive up to I drive from Pine Ridge. I'm heading up to Rosebud, and I get to the Wounded Knee turnoff. I pull over the side of the road, and a native policeman, a native copper, pulls up beside me and taps on the window, and he's like, "Hey, excuse me, sir. Where the hell you think you're going in a Fiat on the res?" He's like, "Man, you can't bring this thing on the res." He goes, "You and your car will disappear." And I started laughing. And I said, "I'm trying to find Rosebud." And I said, "But I wanted to stop here and put down some red ochre in honor of the Wounded Knee massacre." And he said, "Very honorable of your brother." He said, "Here's my number, here's my name. Rosebud's that way. I'm going to ring ahead and let the Rosebud native police know you're coming and to keep an eye out for you. Go into the Rosebud police. Don't go anywhere else, otherwise we might lose you. You might disappear." And I'm like, what's going on here? So I drive off. I get into Rosebud just on sundown, and I see the native police station beside the community hall. And I notice outside the community hall there's a heap of cars there. And I'm going, I must go and introduce. I can't go to the police first. I haven't come this far not to go and introduce other people. So I walk into the hall, and there's probably at least 50 people in there, and they all look around. And I said, "Hey, how's all going?" And you could hear a pin drop. And I was like, "I'm looking for Andy Redbird." And everyone all looked at each other, and then they looked at this lady, and they said, "Mona." And then Mona jumps up, and Mona comes out, and she goes, "Come outside with me." And I walk outside, and she goes, "The people you seek are with Mary Sue. You must go and speak to Mary Sue. She's at Spring Creek. You must go that way." And that's all she said. I'm like, "Sister, I found it hard to get here. Can you get someone to drive me out to where that is?" She draws me a map, and I've still got that map. I've got all this all this little memorabilia stuff that I did on this trip. I'm gonna make a documentary about this one day because it's just such a powerful story. And she hands me the map, and she goes, "That lady there in that black," and there's this beat up black Jeep Cherokee, and she had about 3 kids in the back. She goes, "That," and it was not just a beat up; it was a homemade painted black Cherokee. I'm going, "This doesn't look good. This doesn't look good for me here. This doesn't look, what's going on?" She says she'll take you out and show you where Spring Creek Road is. So I'm driving down this lady, following her out in this black Jeep Cherokee with painted on, black paint, and the blacktop ends. We get to the end of the bitumen, and there's this dirt road. She goes, "Follow that dirt road to the end, and at the end of that dirt road, you'll find Mary Sue, and the people that you seek are waiting for you." So I jump on this thing, and I drive down the road, and I stop in my Fiat, and I look back, and I see her and her kids looking at the window going, "Is this crazy dude really going to go down there?" And I could feel them going, and I could feel this thing going, "This is the moment. This is the moment. If you believe truly in your spirituality and in your law and in your ceremony, this is the moment that you've been waiting for. Mm-hmm. Are you going to turn around and hightail it out of here and cry and run for your life? Or are you going to trust your intuition? You're going to trust your ancestors. You're going to trust your ceremony, and you're going to follow through and go and see this Mary Sue." I kid you not, I drive for about 10, 15 minutes. I come over this prairie and down into this beautiful spot that looked like an idyllic situation out of Dances with Wolves when, Kevin Costner's character finds the place where he's living. That's what it looked like. Willow trees and cottonwood trees. And there's this whole derelict house on the corner, and there were broken down cars, vans, all in the yard. And I walk up the back, and I knock on the back door, and this door opens. And there's this old 80-year-old Native American woman, a Lakota woman. She looks at me and she smiles and she goes, "Hello, my son. I've been waiting for you. I'm your mother." And she walked out and she hugged me and she goes, "Come with me. I'm going to take you down to the Sundance grounds. The medicine man is waiting for you." And I walked down I'm starting to cry. I'm blubbering. She goes, "Don't worry, baby. I'm your mother here in America. I birthed you here. So I'm Mum Mary Sue. Come with me." And she takes me down to the Sundance grounds, and they're getting ready for the big Sundance ceremony because that's their big yearly medicine ceremony to heal each other. And there are these these Lakota warriors who are about to go into a sweat lodge, and she walks up, and this big, the epitome, the stereotype of a Lakota warrior. They're standing, 5 of them, and the medicine man. And he walks up, and they're speaking Lakota. No one speaks English. They're all speaking Lakota to each other. And then he just goes, "Shoop, go hoop." And she looks at me and she goes, "You must go and sweat with them." And she gives me the things I need for the sweat. You need a towel, you need this, you need that, blah, blah, blah. You can take some shorts, or you can go in naked if you want. I go into this, and I'm shitting myself because again, is this for real, or they're going to go in here and cook me up and having a roast? We're having a roast Alec Dumaji tonight. You know? But again, I trusted my belief, and I trusted my ceremony, I trusted my law. I went in, I spent the most powerful sweat lodge ceremony with one of the most powerful Lakota medicine men of all time in it. The next day, when I came out, I was amongst an uncle, my new uncle, his medicine man, and my new brothers that was in there with. And Mum Mary Sue meets me after the sweat, and she goes, "So the medicine man is my little brother, Stanley. And by the way, my father was named William, and his brother was named Stanley. So William Stanley, welcome to your family."
No way.
No bullshit, brother. So and wait for it, it gets deeper. She goes, "My maiden name is Redbird. I noticed you got the red tail feather with you. You're the Redbird family." And she goes, "My married name is Walking Eagle." And I was like, years later, when the eagle name came to me, I'm going, well, that's where the eagle comes from as well, because my mother over there is the eagle. And her maiden name was Redbird. And her father and her father's brother, uncle, was William and Stanley Redbird. So my grandfathers here are William and Stanley Dumaji. My name is William Stanley. So this all was coming together. About 3 days in, we'd get up every morning. I stayed there with her. I'd get up every morning, have coffee, and look out the window, and she'd play country music. I'm talking old country music. I'm talking like, the old Merle Haggard stuff, and George Jones through this old radio. And she'd sit at the window and have her cowboy coffee. She calls it cowboy coffee, and I'd sit there with her. And every day I'd say to her, I was told to find this Andy Redbird character, and I still haven't heard from him yet. And at this stage, I still didn't put two and two together. Mum Mary Sue. About the third day in, we're sitting at the window laughing, and this black little car go past, and she goes, "Oh, there's Andy now." And I said, "Andy who?" She goes, "Andy Redbird." I said, "What? You know him?" She goes, "Yeah, he's my little brother." And that was the most, to this day, one of the most profound things that's ever happened to me, and spiritually uplifting and empowering. And I got to say, if I ever doubted my belief in my ceremony, my culture, my spirituality before, I haven't doubted it since. And I've had many moments like that since as well. And before, but that was one of the most powerful. And to meet my family over there, to meet my mother over there, Mary Sue Redbird, Walking Eagle, and to have a relationship with her and a life with her on this planet while she was still physically here was very powerful. She crossed over into the great dreaming, the spirit world in November 2020. And I speak to her every day, and I pray to her every day and tell her how much I love her. But she was someone that was very important to me. And, her children over there became my brothers and sisters. Mona, remember the Mona I spoke about earlier? Mona's my sister. That's one of her daughters. The medicine man was Stanley Redbird, named after his father, Stanley. So my grandfather, Stanley, over there, and I got an uncle, Stanley, over there. He was the medicine man. And everybody all was interconnected and all knew each other and knew me. And the story and the ceremony and the spirit world was speaking to them. They told me, when I was in that sweat lodge with them, they said to me, they said, "We knew you were coming. The spirits told us you were coming. We felt your presence, and you're home here, and you're welcome here, and you'll always be welcome. This will always be a part of you. This is the portal that your people have been talking to for a long, long time in the spirit world, and we're very honored to have you here with us." And that has opened up a new world to me and a connection that I still carry to this day. And, that I utilized a lot of my creative stuff. And, I created a festival around empowering Native people. And I brought a lot of my brothers and sisters from the Lakota people over at Rosebud over here to Australia. And, we practiced ceremony up home, and we did culture, arts. I created this festival called the Frontier Days Festival, which couldn't go ahead last year due to COVID and also due to finances. But hopefully looking to try and get some money into finance that one and get up and running in a couple of years. But, that's why I believe so much in who I am and what I'm about, that I'm very confident in I guess, my my journey is because I manifested, I dreamt it, and it became reality for me. So that's just one of the stories, brother. There's plenty of them like that.
So yeah, my mind's blown. It's, as I said a little bit earlier before you went into that. I'm moving into this open world of intuition, connection. Just allowing, when things pop up and they talk to you, just allowing them. And if ever I needed a sign to say continue on, and someone to be inspirational and who's been there and everything else, then you're if that story doesn't do it for me and many others, then we've decided to close everything else. So thank you, that was beautiful. So the other part that we wanted to chat about, as you said, there's probably many other stories. So you and I could probably, you've got your chronicles, which I'm sure you're going to do a lot of these stories on. The other part of getting you on here, and again, I'm not going to diminish that story. That was just so powerful. And so, honestly, there was tears welling up with me, and just goosebumps and skin shaking and everything else as you were talking through that. It was just, I felt everything that you were talking, and so that was just amazing. I do want to touch on a little bit about what is happening today, because we've spoken about it a couple of times too. Yes, so this world that we're in, this crazy world that's happening to us. And in particular, and you've talked into a couple of things around, I'm going to take us back. Like in 1970, so that's when you were born, 78. You still had, and this is the thing, like only 40 odd years ago, we still had white Australia basically inappropriately, misusing Black Australians, natural Australians, Aboriginals, slaves, impregnating them, not taking accountability, knowing that was still happening through the pastoral parts through Australia. If I look at, I've recently just finished, Jack Charles is a guy that's down this way. His book, Archie Roach, I've just been through all his book and everything else, and they all talk to the same thing. And again, that's where I'm just in this world of both embarrassment, anger, and sadness about, being a 50-year-old male in Australia, and just, eyes starting to open up to the atrocities that have taken place. But, stolen kids, the challenges that having, as you said, a white dad in an Aboriginal community. So, your mob going, hang on a minute, how does that look? And you getting acceptance from them, and just the indoctrination that's taking place in Aboriginal Australia today about, the push of Western medicine onto them, But the thing I've struggled with, there's a few people I followed on Instagram, but then I've dropped off. I'm going, I see you as, a leader in the Aboriginal, but over here you're telling people to go and get the jab. It's okay for you to go and get it, but you're having a go at white people from not being connected or allowing your culture to exist. Yeah. You're pushing a white medicine.
Yes, exactly.
That's what I'm struggling a little bit now is this connection. There had to be medicines. You talked to sandalwood and you did a reel on it recently. We've loved sandalwood, by the way. It's just the scent on its own is powerful. We're into natural oils. We're actually into natural, healthy living. We're all plant-based. That's just because it's our choice, because I'm not into the way our animals are farmed these days. I think it's not natural. It's not native. They fill them, they're filling us all full of shit wherever they can find it, right? It's in our food. It's in the soft drinks. And as you were saying before, it's, one of the things I'm completely recognizing is the fact that they're driving this world of disconnection through externalization, social media, pornography, alcohol, drugs, push. The more disconnected people we can get, the easier it is to control them. Yeah. I'm trying to work with men. So that's what my space is, work with men to say, how can I get you from being disconnected to reconnected?
Yep.
To move to the path of being connected, and then to the path of actually almost that surrender, completely just knowing that your energy is the universal energy, and you are the one and the same. There is no difference between you, the plant, the animal, the bird, the tree. We are all one. And what I do here actually impacts something there energetically. We're all connected. But yeah, so back to what's happening with Indigenous Australia, Aboriginal Australia. I know I've been using wrong terms all the way through. What's happening with the mob? Right, let's go back. What's happening with the mob? Like, let's get into that space, because you're an activist, you're passionate about what's going down with the mob at the moment within Australia. So let's get into that space as well.
Well, let's talk about that for a minute, because that's bringing a lot of disunity. I guess it's a conquer and divide tactic again. It's the system using its power and its narrative and its propaganda sort of machine to turn blackfellas against blackfellas. And it's always worked. It's worked very, very good in this country. Now, no disrespect to any of my brothers and sisters out there that believe they need to get the jab, and if they want it, and they've been scaremongered into doing it, or their lived reality is that they have to get it in order to survive and live, all means, go ahead and do it. My issue is, do not attack me for my choice not to. That tells me there's something wrong. Also, what tells me something wrong, and this is just me using my intuition, and again, it's served me well so far. I mean, I survived going through the Lakota country, warrior people. So if my intuition can help me survive being scalped by my brothers over there, I'm telling you right now, my intuition is telling me that something's not right here. Something a little bit sinister, something a little bit odd. It smells funny to me. Now, I'm not saying that all Western medicine is wrong. I'm not saying that all Western medicine is bad. I'm not saying it hasn't had an impact on the world and society as a whole. There's been a lot of good breakthroughs. There's been a lot of good things within Western society, Western medicine, that has been beneficial, and that has changed the game big time. Pregnancies, being able to have cesareans, all that stuff that's actually beneficial to our mob and helping our women and saving them. I guess you can look at penicillin as a game changer. You can look at some of the things that come through the medical terms with anesthetic and the use of poppy oils and all sorts of stuff to help our mob. I also know that we had a long-standing existing practice of medicinal use for natural plants and natural, remedies here in this country that has sustained us and helped us survive over a long period of time. We live in a country where there's heaps of snakes. Like real poisonous snakes. We've got 10 of the top poisonous snakes in the world. You don't think or believe that we would have had a remedy or an antidote for that? Like, you can't tell me that we lived here amongst these snakes and not stood on them and it hadn't killed us all out. We must have had something that helped us with it. There must have been a remedy or a medicine or an antidote for brown snake bite, for taipan bites, for red belly black. These are very poisonous snakes. So don't sit there and attack me when I say, well, I'm going to drink some sandalwood and hopefully that'll help me through this. I'm also very fit. I take care of myself. I don't smoke. I'm not a big drinker. I don't abuse drugs. I'm in a different sort of realm where I guess someone that is at risk of this. I don't have diabetes, knock on wood. Let's hope that stays that way. Sugar diabetes is a big killer of our mob. I don't have kidney failure. I don't have pre-existing health conditions that is going to put me at risk for this super flu. I call it a super flu because if there is if COVID is a thing, and I'm pretty sure there is something, I believe it's a new strand of the flu. It's just because all the symptoms points to the flu or pneumonia or something to do with that. So if you're telling me, and trust me, I've had really bad flus before. I had one a couple of years ago that had me bedridden, and I was really crook. I've had them. I know what they feel like. My body, my immune system worked through it, and I got better. So I believe whatever this thing is that they're using as a way to scare people, to control you, is a very strong a strand of the flu. That we're going to call it COVID-19, whatever we're going to call it. And a lot of people saying, trust the science. Here's a little bit of a epiphany for you. You know what science is telling me? Science is actually telling me that even if you get the jab, you still are not protected from it. And even if you get the jab, you still can pass it on. And even if you get the jab, it still doesn't make any difference when you don't have a jab. That's what science is actually telling me. You know what I mean? So come on, bro.
Agree.
Come on. Common sense tells me, okay, but if science is telling me that it doesn't matter whether you get it or get it, I might just sit this one out and wait for a bit. You know what I mean?
Yes.
And wait until you get something that actually does protect me, does prevent it, doesn't, like that does give me a suit of armor. And what's sad is that I see a lot of Aboriginal people out there in the public domain, whether it's on their socials or not, pushing it and pushing on their mob, claiming that it's like the smallpox and you're killing your mob. But what they're doing is they're using psychological warfare, and they're psychologically, I guess, abusing other Aboriginal people into getting it. They're saying, oh, if you don't get it, you're endangering your community. If you don't get it, you're going to kill your elders. Get the fuck out of here with that shit. I'm sorry, but I have to say that because that's bullshit. You don't think the system is doing a good enough job killing our mob already? You don't think the powers that be have a big target on our foreheads already, but you want to come and push and perpetrate and have a go at your own mob out in the public domain and tell us that we're part of the problem, we're part of killing our people? Just sit back and wait till the information filters through properly, because I believe, from what I understand, there's a lot of doctors, a lot of scientists, and a lot of experts that don't agree with this jabby and don't agree with this vaccine, and certainly don't agree with the way it's all being rolled out. You know what I'm saying?
Agreed.
So my common sense and my intuition and my spiritual belief and my culture and my law, my power in me and everything that I've learned from the last 240 years of the way this white system wants to help me, I call bullshit on it. And that's the way I'm doing it. And I'm doing it from my lived experience. I'm doing it from someone that's lived through the hardship of black deaths in custody. My cousin, Cameron Dumaji, was killed on Palm Island while in custody. I just come back from opening a memorial up to him. So don't tell me about fighting the system. Don't tell me about propaganda. Don't tell me about them protecting themselves, because they did that to me and my family when they killed my cousin, when he died in custody, and when the guy that committed the death in custody, because you can't say murder, because he already been to court, but the system failed him. The system on a technicality let him off, just like the system on a technicality recently released George Pell. Like, these are like, if you look at it as a whole, and there's ways of around what they're doing, and they're utilizing their game. Here's another thing. Here's another thing I want to say to you, all you Aboriginal mob out there, all the black fellas out there. We are playing a game of this is their game. This is their ballpark. This is their playbook. Right? You understand what I'm saying to you? So if they're going to change the rules, and if they're going to change the empires, and if they're going to get new players in, they're going to do it. So when you're sitting in their world and you're playing their game and you're jumping to their whim and you're listening and believing their narrative, you've already lost. And I'm not going to sit here and say you're a sheep. I'm not going to sit here and badmouth you and tell you that you're bowing to the system and you're already beaten, because I know how hard it is. I know you're mobbing beaten down. I know how hard it is to survive. I know when you see everyone around you in all the messaging saying this, I'm with you 100%, whether you get the jab or you don't. I'm just saying to you, for me, I don't feel it's right, and I'm not going to do it. And I'm going to wait and see how things go out. I'm going to wait and see what comes along, and when the science does tell me it protects me, and I can't pass it. Because at the moment, science telling me that I can't. Science telling me that when you get the jab, you still don't want to protect it. Science is telling me that when you get the jab, you still can pass it on to family members. And science is also telling me, and this is another one that I want to add in it, this is what is being spoken about quietly. They're going, blah, 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 blah. Science is also saying that when you get the jab, it weakens your immune system and opens you up to being infected by other diseases. So if you've got pre-existing conditions, guess what? You're going to die from them. That's what science isn't saying out loud. That's what science is saying, but that's what the media and the propaganda machine aren't saying out loud. And I got to say this, just recently, there's been deaths up home in my community and close by that are very suspicious. I'm talking after people have gotten the jab, they've had heart attacks and there's been heart issues and they've died.
Yep.
That tells me that something is not right here. Something stinks and it's a bit sinister. So, I've spoken to my mother, and I can only take care of my backyard. When people ask me what's the answer and what's the way forward, I can only look after myself and my backyard, my children, my wife, my mother. I spoke to my mother about it, and Mum's very adamant. She trusts me and she trusts my judgment. She said, baby, I'm not going to get the jab. If you say that, I won't. So she isn't. She's going at bush. She's eating bush tucker. If you look at our people's diet, it's terrible, because the Aboriginal community shops, are littered with disgusting tinned food with all sorts of processed bullshit in it. And the fresh food that does finally get out there is over almost 2 weeks old and costs an arm and a leg. A bottle of milk in an Aboriginal community is about $8. That's bullshit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, go to my hometown of Dumaji and have a look at how much things cost in that shop. And most of those people, on average, are earning maybe $300 a fortnight. A fortnight, not a week, a fortnight. And guess what? Most of those Aboriginal community shops, guess who owns them? The state government. They belong to the state government. So the money goes back into them. Then you've got the health system. Let's talk about the health system. The health system, over a long period of time, have been killing our people by dismissing them, by being disrespectful to them. Systemic racism in Aboriginal community hospitals is disgusting. They make you feel like you're an inconvenience to the fact you walk out and hand you a Panadol. They give you Panadol to save you from everything. And people are dying from it. I know a young fellow that died in Dumaji, my community, in Dumaji in 2018. He had an abscess on his teeth, on his gum, and they sent him home with a Panadol. An hour later, he died in his mother's arms because the abscess busted. He got blood poisoning. Yep. How can that shit be happening? If this system cares about me so much, that's why I don't get it. If this health system cares about it so much, where was the concern of the health department down in New South Wales, in those Aboriginal communities out in northern New South Wales a couple of weeks ago when apparently there was big COVID outbreaks? The cops were sending people away with food that were going in to feed those people.
Yep.
The actions of these so-called people that care about us are totally different and not consistent with those that are trying to save us. I mean, look and think and breathe. And Aboriginal mob that are for the jab can't see this. Then, man, I'm not going to run around banging on your windows and waking you up. That's your choice to do that. So do that, but just don't attack me and call me someone that's endangering my mob just because I'm not choosing to walk your path. I've got my own path, and I believe fully in what I'm doing, and that's why I'm really glad I told the story earlier about my belief and about my culture and about my law, because that's who I really am. I'm a lawman. I'm a spiritual lawman that trusts in my intuition and my lived experience and how I've been treated. I'm 45 years old. I was born in 1976, and the way I've been treated all my life certainly does not tell me that the system I'm living in cares about me. Black deaths in custody, suicide rates, incarceration rates, youth pregnancies, homelessness, joblessness. The list goes on. Health concerns, the health issues. Yesterday in the newspapers up here, the Courier Mail newspapers, which I wouldn't know what the equivalent is down Melbourne way. I think it's the Sydney Morning Herald in Sydney or whatever. But there's a story on Mornington Island with the mayor talking about kids in their 20s getting sugar diabetes, because the system brought in the AMP laws, the alcohol management laws. So these mob are starting to make home brew. And guess what? They're not very good at making home brew. Our mob have never made alcohol. We drank sandalwood and other stuff and things like kava and that, but not alcohol. So all these mob are making home brew up home, and they don't know how. The Irish, great beer makers. The Scottish, because that's their culture, their law. Make them out of potatoes or whatever. Up here, they're using sugar and putting a heap of sugar and cordial into it, and they're getting this recipe that is destroying their kidneys. And kids as young as 25-year-old kids are ending up with kidney failure and on dialysis and dying. Like, that's a pandemic. Like, the real pandemics in our communities are not being addressed or are being sugar-coated or even putting Band-Aids fix on. I've spoke about rheumatic heart disease, which is a pandemic. That's a third world country disease, and it's a problem. I lost my daughter last year to that. If you want to talk to me about how much the system cares about me, what you're saying and what they're actually doing are two different things. I'm telling you right now, my sister last year, Del Sandy, died due to the treatment, her treatment at the Dumaji hospital. Around the same time, George Floyd had a knee on his throat. My sister had the entire health system of Queensland with their knee on her throat for 3 days, and she died, and no one gave a shit. No one said nothing. Because it's just another black woman. Don't care. That doesn't matter that she wasn't an alcoholic, that wasn't a drug abuser, that she was a mother, that she was a law woman, that she hunted and fished and looked after herself. Didn't care about that. Just another number. And the budget told them they didn't want to find doctors to get her out. We're investigating all that stuff, and we're investigating. I'm working really hard in the back. While all this mob are chucking shit at me, I'm out there doing the hard yards, doing the things that need to be done. So keep coming at me. It's just giving me fuel for my fire, to keep motivating me to actually spill the truth and bring the truth out. And some of the things we're finding over the last 12 months, it's absolutely disgusting. You are going to be shocked by the health system in this country and their treatment of Aboriginal people, especially the one I say I'm only going to speak for the Queensland health system, right? And the treatment of a couple of our mob up in Dumaji, and you will be shocked and blown away by what we're finding. I'm not going to talk too much about it on here, but it will be coming out very soon. And then all you mob out there that are doubting me, that are attacking me, and then have a go at me, I hope you wake up then, because most of you mob, you don't believe blackfellas until a white man come and tell you. That's your problem. You believe the white man too much. When a white man rock up with his study and with his report and with his in-depth analysis of it all of a sudden, oh my God, Alec was right. Shit, sorry, brother. Too late then. You won't be welcome at my fire camp then. Nah, you'll always be welcome. I don't care if you hate me or not. I'm just trying my best to survive in a world where it's hell bent on eradicating me and destroying me and my people and my connection to land. Because again, we are the thorn in white Australia's side, the lie that's always been perpetrated here and will continue to be perpetrated until we address it, brother. So that's what I'm about. And that's how I feel, and I'll keep doing what I'm doing. I'll keep saying what I'm saying. And if it's shaking the foundations of not just the Aboriginal community, and getting the attention of the powers that be and the people that need to hear it, then so be it. My job's done, and I'll happily go and sit beside my ancestors in the great dreaming and tell them, I did what you mob was telling me through the spirit world, and I'll continue to do it. Oh, brother, I'm going to have to get going soon because I got a wife that's about to go to dinner with her mum and go pick our babies up. But I'd like to do more of these talks. I'd actually like to come on your podcast a lot more and chat about a lot more the issues and I guess my journey and the path I walk.
Look, Alec, I'd love for us to have another revisit on the podcast. We have definitely gone over the normal time we run with, but there's no way I'm stopping you today. There's no way at all. I think there's many topics that we should keep touching on, and I'm happy to create, even if it's off the side, educational one where we sit there and just keep pumping out, a whole lot of stuff that people need to know. Look, thank you, man. I really appreciate your openness, your honesty. Again, I've still got shivers about the story with you and the Lakota people. That is just... Well,
I just wanted to put it in the context.
So beautiful. Yeah.
I wanted to put it in the context for you and your listeners why I act the way I do. And even here in Australia, I do a lot of spiritual, cultural ceremony stuff that actually answers a lot of the questions. And that's why I speak about it's psychologically, if I'm telling myself psychologically that sandalwood is going to save me and help me physically and mentally, spiritually, it does. Because that's part of the healing process and part of, taking care of yourself, mind, body, and soul. But look, thank you for having me on. And I got to get going because we got to go and have some Sunday roast with the family.
All right, mate. Look, I really appreciate it. Thanks a lot for coming on. Sending you much love, and I'll definitely touch base with you very soon, and we'll continue having a chat. Take care, man. Have a great night. Much love.
Thanks, brother. All right.
Bye. Hey, wow. So that's Alec, Willie, Stanley, Dumaji. What an absolutely just amazing man. Wasn't sure where we're going to go with the conversation. I opened it up to him and he went exactly where he wanted to go. And that was the beautiful thing about that story that he told about him going on his walk. Is just mind-blowing. Absolutely mind-blowing. The fact that, we talk about spiritual connection and connection with the universe, but for the events to take out like it took out for him was just completely amazing. So I'm going to wrap up there. Alec will definitely be coming on. I can guarantee you that. So that's it. That's episode 41 of the Unearthed Man podcast. I'm hoping you all have a beautiful, wonderful day and sending you much love and care. Milvo.